Hello and most welcome to 1839 of the Heidegger series. We will today continue the started article by Hannah Strømmen, The Politics of the Beast, Rewiring Revelation 17. Last time we made quite a few comments and how evil is depicted differently and different tropes are used to metaphorically approach the beast and the whore of Babylon. And we also mentioned how the actual existence of the composite figures as the animals are the possibility for the beast to be real. It needs to be made up of true things. And the hybrid state is enforcing the badness or how it is evil. It is a hybrid. It's a mixture of different things that belies the one-sidedness, as mentioned here in the note. If you go up a little bit, Kalle, there was actually with two horns like a lamb, speaking like a dragon, as well as the great red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns. All these things are real. Nothing is transcendental. There is no Tegmarkian otherworldliness or an analytical philosophical beyondness in the terms of inner self or outer objects. Everything is absolutely real to the last number. Something that takes action in this world, participate, do things, is active, and is this sheer activity that is so important for it to become real, working, participatory, being of the context. And this also goes for the great force of these images, or I would say they're even stronger. And we had examples how Albrecht Dürer treated it and how some American preacher compared the European Union with the beast. So the strength of it is coming from its being of the material. This is, of course, very close to how the heavenly Jerusalem, or the next Jerusalem, if you like, can only be real when it takes a starting point in Rome. It is just that the holy Jerusalem, or the next Jerusalem, is all that more. And that cannot be understood if not Rome is there. You could say you have materiality and luxury of the Roman palaces, but then even more. This is to compare to a move where you say the New Jerusalem is in opposition to Rome, and then you would lose everything. You will be left penniless, if you like. It would lose out on the reality. So we will continue where I left off, page 153. And at the very end of the first paragraph, it's actually human political sovereignty. So you need to go up a bit. No, you're absolutely correct. But you can take it down a bit because I'm standing here. So if you bring the text, yeah, that's perfect. In Rogues, Derrida explores the idea of a deconstructed sovereignty. He attempts to think a deconstructed sovereignty through the inversion of the idea of a sovereign God. Wherever the name of God would allow us to think something else. For example, a vulnerable non-sovereignty, one that suffers and is divisible, one that is mortal even, capable of contradicting itself or repenting. It would be a completely different story, perhaps even the story of a God who deconstruct himself in his ipsity. Invoking Jeremy Bentham's famous question, can animals suffer? Derrida's deconstructed sovereignty is a matter of thinking a power without power. He wants to think a capability or attribute, a power of non-power. The power or capability to suffer. Mortality resides there as the most radical means of thinking the finitude that we share with animals. the mortality that belongs to the very finitude of life, to the experience of compassion, to the possibility of sharing the possibility of this non-power, the anguish of this vulnerability. A struggle has been taking place, which Derrida calls a war, between, on the one hand, those who violate not only animal life, but even and also this sentiment of compassion. And on the other hand, those who appeal for an irrefutable testimony to this pity. A war, in other words, waged over the matter of pity. We are passing through a critical phase, he suggests, that is inescapable. To think the war we find ourselves waging. Deconstructing sovereignty, he argues, can begin to reconfigure the war waged against the animal as the other. Either outside morality or as a figure of evil that must be conquered. It is a matter, as Laurel Kearns put it, of opening wide spaces for reimagining the relationship between human and animal. If the whore and the beast of Revelation 17 have been used to configure a war on numerous enemies in differing contexts, then they have also been used, at least implicitly, but often also explicitly, to denigrate the female and the animal by imagining political evil as female animal. Feminists have long recognized that Revelation is a problematic book. But arguably, it is necessary to think not only in terms of how the female is depicted, but specifically how the female is animalized or thought of as animal. and how animality becomes a vehicle for upholding a belligerent sovereign position against an enemy. In the sexual politics of meat, a feminist vegetarian critical theory Carol Adams writes, "People with power have always eaten meat." Echoing Adams, Derrida asks, we can keep it at the middle of the page, a bit down. We can go down a bit, please. Who down, the other way? Who could be the head of state, yes, and declare himself publicly a vegetarian? Through her examination of cookbooks, fairy tales, and discourse on food in politics and culture more generally. Adams argues that mythology is at work where meat eating is an intimately masculine activity and the symbol of patriarchy. The pieces of meat are female identified as flesh to be subjugated and controlled. Adam demonstrates how cultural images of sexual violence intersect with images of the butchering and eating of animals. Especially in the sex industry, where women become objects of consumption to their male customers, but also in, for instance, the chains, cattle prods, dog collars, and ropes used in pornography to control the animal woman. The killing of wild animals is linked to demonstrations of masculine power. Just as might be seen in Revelation 17, with the triumph of the Lamb involving the killing and eating of the wild whore and the conquering of the wild and ferocious beast. The slaughtered animal is associated with a ferociousness that must be controlled, evoking notions of territorial imperative, armed hunting, aggressive behavior, and the vitality and virility of meat eating. through symbolism based on killing animals, we encounter politically laden images of absorption, control, domain, and the necessity of violence. This message of male dominance is conveyed through meat eating, both in its symbolism and reality. It is through the specifically animalized imagery that the whore and beast becomes a legitimate target for violence, while sympathy is exclusively invoked for the lamb. The whore is eventually laid bare, eaten and burnt, as if a sacrifice tinged with sexual violence. Yvonne Sherwood argues that sacrifice itself could be read as a way of erecting distinctions between the humans that sacrifice, the animals that are sacrificed, and the gods that are the receivers of sacrifice. But it is also about dissolving such distinctions. It is, she suggests, about cutting up life in the sense of establishing the conceptual divisions that help us make sense of life. In Revelation 17, the whore is carved up as edible flesh, and the beast is sent to its destruction. Instead of being presented as strategies for cutting up life, however, the violence against the beast and whore is seemingly naturalized as legitimate, because Rome as political evil is presented as a monstrous aberration akin to a hideous beast that derives its ultimate authority from Satan. But can this machinery be wired otherwise? Revelation 17, rewired. In Revelation 17, it is the Lamb that wins. that becomes the conquering power, Lord of lords, Kings of kings. In opposition to the ferocious sovereign figures of the whore and the beast, the imagery of the lamb denotes innocence, sacrificial, saving powers. Christopher Rowland emphasizes the significance of such a weak creature as an agent of God's purposes. He argues that this is God's way of being present as the Lamb on the throne. As the throne denotes, this Lamb then is also a sovereign force. The aim is for the kingdom of the world to become the kingdom of our Lord. For you to have taken your great power and begun to reign. It is God who will be king of nations, not the whore and beast. As a sovereign lamb, the divine political is seemingly thus represented as a weak power. Notably, however, the weak power of the Lamb is triumphant. In 1714, the beast and its kings will make war on the Lamb, but the Lamb will conquer them, for he is the Lord of lords, Kings of kings. The Lamb thus plays into what Derrida describes as essential and proper to sovereignty. Not grandeur or height, but excess, hyperbole, and excess insatiable for the passing of every determinable limit. Higher than height, grander than grandeur. As Stephen Moore puts it, the paradox of the Lamb is that it appears to be a docile and domesticated trope for domination, which becomes a monstrous agent of terror. Whose God is as terrifying as the beast in his great supper of the flesh of all, animals and humans alike. The beast then becomes a victim to this more proper form of sovereignty. The lamb does not remain an innocent animal figure outside the ethical, political realm. And the beast does not, perhaps, simply signify active, belligerent violence. In fact, if we actually attend to the animality of the beast and do not immediately rush to a reading that emphasizes the various human figures of imperial power that the beast may denote, may really be about a rather different picture emerges than merely one of unadulterated evil. As already mentioned, the beast with 10 horns and 7 heads is in Revelation 13, described like a leopard. Its feet were like a bear's, and its mouth was like a lion's mouth. The idea of beastly imagery with many heads, horns, and resembling multiple animals evokes the monstrous. But the idea of such a hybrid animal, and the very idea of many-headed beast, could be read in a light of the lives of animals in the Roman Empire, as suggested in Christopher Frelingo's incisive study on spectatorship and the Roman arena in Revelation. Spectacles of empire monsters, martyrs, and the book of Revelation. Following Frilingo's Robert Seasongood deems Revelation to be more like a spectacle than a vision. He argues that the repeated pattern of combat scenes and exotic displays found in the Apocalypse may be deliberately evocative of the spectacles of the Roman arena. Embedded in the language of games, sports, and violence, in the Roman arenas that are reflected in Revelation, I suggest that the particular discourse of animality and sovereignty is paramount for constructing sympathy for the good team and antipathy for the bad team, the beast and whore. The war between the lamb and beast could be seen as a battle of beastly Roman power against its innocent opponents, polemically constructed as Christian humans treated like lambs. Such opponents are portrayed in Revelation 17 as if a lamb thrown to the wild beasts of the Roman arenas. Revelation provides a textual theater that narrates spectacles for its ancient Christian audience, drawing on available discourses in the Roman Empire. Frilingos suggests that such spectacles were a particularly effective mode for the production of authoritative knowledge about other and self under the Roman Empire. The beast of Revelation then plays the part of the other and is necessarily the opposing team that conjures up antipathy against those identifying with the Lamb. As animal figures in this textual theatre, land and beast represent different types of sovereignty. The thirst, an innocent and weak but true sovereignty. And the latter as the powerful, evil sovereignty that must be defeated for the true sovereignty to reign. This opposition of good against evil works so well because the weak, innocent animal against a hybrid wild beastly force plays upon a spectrum of animality where the animal is both, as Derrida points out, seen as an innocent creature outside the human ethical political realm, and as the beastly aspect of human nature that must be actively excluded from this realm. The land can thus function as the former and the beast as the latter. Both animal figures, but representing different forms of animality and different types of sovereignty. Synchronicity. It seems that we end with sovereignty once more. I will put a slash here. By sovereignty. I will go for some quotes. We'll go to some light here. We may go to page 155. We have the polarity, the yin and yang of this story pointed out by Hannah Strømmen in the fourth paragraph here. It is through the specifically animalized imagery that the whore and beast becomes a legitimate target for violence, while sympathy is exclusively invoked for the lamb. So there is an opposition, binary opposition established here, where the lamb is taking from the whore and beast its legitimacy. It's getting its goodness from the whore and beast. The whore and beast being the supplement, something we mentioned in the previous lecture. It's a dependency here. For something to be good, it needs to have its opposite to be its power base, so to speak. But if the polarity is too exclusive, it's a matter of level always. There is no black and white in reality. If the polarity is too sharp, if the concepts are cut out of reality, they will not do the work for either part. This is a lesson we learned already in Derrida's lectures, Life, Death. It's not about the polarity in itself, it's about how sharp you make them. Is the other completely excluded, you will have neither. But if it is included, you can have both exactness and generality. Remember, singularity can only come from plurality, something we learn from quantum mechanics, as well as Heraclitus. If we go to 156, please, Kalle. And to the second paragraph here. Once more, a very sharp polarity is established here. And it is so many supplements here. We have in 4 lines down, Christopher Rowland emphasizes the significance of such a weak creature as an agent of God's purposes. He argues that this is God's way of being present as the Lamb on the throne. So we have too much of a sharpness here, and of course then we have neither good nor evil. They are too distant from each other. And I think that is very close to how the metaphor I came up with here is electricity. If the plus and the minus is too distant from each other, you will have no force in between them. If it's too much on the outside, too much dispelled, outcasted, you would lose the specific power. And that is something we also learn from quantum mechanics. For wave and particle to be different, that need to be of the same kind. And if we may please go to the couple of first line of page 157. The next page, please, Kalle. The Lamb thus plays into what Derrida describes as essential and proper to sovereignty, not grandeur or height, but excess, hyperbole, and excess insatiable for the passing of every determinable limit, higher than height, grander than grandeur, etc. As Stephen Moore puts it, the paradox of the lamb is that it appears to be a docile and domesticated trope for domination, which becomes a monstrous agent of terror, whose God is as terrifying as the beast in his great supper. Of the flesh of all, animals and humans alike. Trope, as you might understand, means turning or flexing or spiraling, twisting. That is one of the reasons it's used in the word tropics. It's turning to the latitude of, oh my God, what is that in English? Kräfta in Swedish. But to the southern latitude, it's a turning, it's a twisting. The twisting is necessary for there to be goodness. And it's excellent, the lamb, in this specific circumstance. The terrifying is bringing in its opposite for making goodness possible. God can be a ferocious God, although I wonder if Stephen Moore is aware of that. Further down, we read in the second paragraph on that page, and the second sentence, the lamb does not remain an innocent animal figure outside the ethical political realm, and the beast does not perhaps simply signify active belligerent violence. And that is one of the notes. They go into each other. And I'm starting to think about the Matryoshkas, how they enter to each other to become more individual. The very core of individuality, or for a property to be pure, it's that it accepts the other. Without that acceptance, it cannot be different. Everything will be the same if there is no re-entering, if there is no outside going to the inside and vice versa. And to end with Ian McGilchrist, I think he said something to this effect. When they took the crosses out of the churches in the English Civil War and said that every place would be holy, they ended up with holiness disappearing. But if it enters, if there is a separation, then entrance is possible. And you can have definitions and contrasts. Derrida, I think, is not pointing to a post-relativism that Hannah seemed to be thinking. No, he saves the purity of goodness by letting it enter like a Klein bottle logic in from the outside to the inside. Thank you very much. Kalle, please enter into our little summary here. I will move my computer. Wish me luck.
Thank you. Let me return to our paper that we went through 1 month ago. Do you hear me well, Hans?
Yes, if you heighten your voice a bit more, if you can.
Let me see.
Bit
Okay,
higher.
thank you. Okay, let me return to this. It's the paper by Canada Moss and about the New Jerusalem. It's on page 365. Dionysius Alexandria produces now famous arguments against the Johannine authorship of Revelation. Less frequently noted are his arguments that Millennius led people to hope for things that are trivial and corruptible, and that the books cannot be understood in the literal sense. He adds the opinions of authors that Revelation can be attributed to Cerinthus, a man devoted to the pleasures of the body, the belly, and what comes beneath the belly. Though it is rarely noted in scholarship.
Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah.
On the canonization and reception of the Apocalypse, Revelation's potential support for hedonism is one reason for Dionysius' rejection of literalist interpretations of it. So this was my favorite phrase. This about a certain Cerinthus would have written it, a man devoted to the pleasures of the body, the belly, and what comes beneath the belly.
Yes, and we all know what comes beneath the belly.
And why did I take up this about the belly? It's this particular phrase here. So there is God is as terrifying as the beast in his great supper of the flesh of all animals or humans alike. So there will be a great supper. That is the relevance to this paper, supper and the belly. So even God eats. We can compare with Valhalla of the Vikings.
Oh yeah.
Where people will eat, or I think Asterix Obelix a little bit more banally, and everything ends well with a huge supper. And this also you have the same thought in Book of Revelation, but perhaps even more terrifying variant. Is this anti-Christian, so to say, as Dionysius Alexander thought? No, as you point out, Hans, but in a different manner. God will punish evil people, and he can punish in the way he likes or wants. He wants to eat them. That's his meal. Taste of that is his tea, so to say.
Well, he doesn't follow any classical laws. He can do whatever he wants because he's God.
Mm-hmm. And indeed. And I do like every that you point out, Hans, that about oppositions that we need. We need them, and they shouldn't be too sharp, as Silvermore puts them, and even Hanna Strømmen. They highlight the oppositions.
Yeah, they seem to be taking them too sharp, and I don't know, Kalle. Maybe they are in. We talked the other day about 3 ways of grammatical rules of language. The first one being the ostensive definition, the second being by explanation, a bachelor is an unmarried man. And they try to say that goodness is like this very uncommon and pretty naive picture of language/world. And to say, oh, I try to understand goodness is the exclusiveness of badness. An extreme simplification. Or I can reach goodness just by pointing at it and take away badness.
That is the first definition, and here you had Hanna Strømmen says that. Where did you have this phrase? When she uses the word signify, that is very typical of the first definition in Francis King's paper from 2021 about the ostensive definition.
Oh yeah.
And so Anna Strømmen who uses much ostensive definitions. I don't find it now, but for instance, denotes innocence.
Oh yeah.
Of course, one example.
It's a simple game of reference.
Yes, indeed.
It's so easy. The lamb is just innocence because lambs are innocent and they are cuddly and so, and therefore a lamb describes goodness, pure goodness, somewhere transcendental, not of this world.
And in the book of Lamb, I don't know why she doesn't take it up, but you have Jesus in the book of Revelation is not like this one. This is so cute. Let me take Surbaran, Lamb, Madrid. It's extremely cute. In Madrid, this Agnus Dei by this Spanish painter Zurbarán.
What a beautiful painting.
Yes, it's really lovely. But I think to make implicitly, Hanna Strømmen and Stephen Moore make the mistake implicitly that they think she's in the book of Revelation like this kind of lamb. But the book of Revelation depicts Jesus not only as a lamb, but also as a lion and as a ram. And nobody has really put out that the Greek word for lamb means also ram. But it's more, so it's a hybrid creature. It's a warrior. So also Jesus is a hybrid creature, and I don't know how she fails to mention that.
Yeah. Wow.
So there is still much to be done when it comes to research about the book of Revelation. Specifically when this is about animality in the book of Revelation, bestiality. Even though this picture is a little bit misleading, it's not completely misleading because Jesus was a sacrificial lamb, but he was not only a sacrificial lamb, he was also a lion.
Yeah.
So there
ferocious
is also,
animal,
of course, strength in being like a lamb. Like think about Gandhi, but I don't think in book of Revelation we shouldn't think Jesus as a Gandhi figure necessarily. I think that is a bit misleading. But even so, I propose that we end this lecture with this cute picture, even though it's a little bit misleading. If you don't, please say some concluding words, Hans.
Well, I think it's great. Yeah, of course, for there to be weakness, there needs to be strength as well. And this one-sidedness, I think that's the grammatical rule 1 and 2, ostensive definition and definition by explanation. And it becomes unreal if she say it's representing, she's trying to do some sort of private language that it doesn't really make sense. Everything is interacting in the universe. Everything goes into each other. And for something to be of pure goodness, it needs both always, the outer and the inner.
So should I, Hans, perhaps for the sake of listeners, those who are not followed us, show also the relevant passage, because I know this is very heavy. Bible scholars are not familiar. This is the paper of Franz Lin. I will show the this from 2021, the relevant paragraph. I think it's good to show this. This is this we want to save, so to say, biblical studies.
Yes, there are several types of grammatical rules. The first type is ostensive definition. For example, this color is called red. Is a grammatical rule. And in this case, it has traits of this. You point out goodness. I point it out with my mind or my finger. And it also have traits with the second one, which is an explicit formulation or an explanation. An unmarried man is called a bachelor. These two types are very unusual in real language, and she seemed to be caught up with this. I can point at goodness. It's a lamb, and it's it doesn't have any connection to reality, no relations. There's no context. There's no history. It's unreal. That way of pointing things out is unreal. You do it very seldom in a special part of language, I'd say.
Yeah, that remind me this past weekend, that is yesterday Sunday. There was a Bible text that you actually had a ostentative definition, but that was really exception because Jesus never does it really. Let me because I think it's so it is beautiful example. I feel Nathan Jesus no let's see. Under 5.553. Okay. You have here a very let me see, it was yes, okay, so let John chapter 1. So there is okay, let me show it from John chapter 1. John 1. Okay. So they go up and pick a certain Nathanael, and they go to Jesus. Come and see. And Jesus or Nathanael coming to him, says of him, "Behold, an Israel indeed, in whom is no guile." Nathanael said unto him, "Whence knowest thou me?" Jesus answered and said unto him, "Before that Philip called thee, when thou wast under the fig tree, I saw thee." And then Nathanael says, "Rabbi, thou art the Son of God, thou art the King of Israel." So this is an exception. So here Jesus says, coming to the sense of, "Behold, an Israel indeed, in whom no guile." You understand? It's also in the definition, and it's also kind of, but this is I would say, an exception. This Norman doesn't do this.
No.
You don't have this in real life, so this is what you would call ostentative definition.
Oh yeah, I see what you mean.
But you don't have this in Book of Revelation. Excuse me, this is it's an Book of Revelation. You don't have this kind of ostentative definitions like you had here. This is an exception.
I think
because you don't go around in everyday life and say, here you have this person in whom is no guile. Yeah, and then there is a kind of label attached to this person. These are context. This is important is about the context, a specific context.
Yes.
This occurs in context. So Wittgenstein emphasizes everything about context. So
I think it's similar to the transcendental words of Max Tegmark. They are unreal by themselves. Just reading about them, you see they have all the ostensive definition. This purely ostensive world of the other worlds, it's unreal by itself. Already in the explanation of it, it's unreal. Well, that was pretty excellent. What do you say, Kalle?
Yes, let's end it. I know that this was heavy stuff for our listeners. and also for ourselves too. But we hope people can digest this and get insights from this.
Yeah, I hope so too. I agree with your nice thoughts. Do digest this. Do take it in slowly. I say thank you very much, Kalle Lundahl, for your excellent comments and participating. Thank you very much for listening in, everyone. Have a very pleasant day, morning, or evening, wherever you are. Bye-bye for now.